It's still a sense of heavy competition out there. I think we're getting probably what most colleges across the country are getting is excitement at times from freshmen, and I wouldn't say frustration. That's not the right word because they're such good kids we have. But with freshmen, there's just a lot to learn. In particular, with a position that you just don't get that many reps or coaching in high school based on just the way things are laid out. It takes a very talented kid to be able to take to that position at an SEC or just collegiate level right away. But those guys have shown moments of brilliance, and they've also shown moments of needing improvement or just youth, natural youth. But the other guys, I don't know what somebody said to Mr. Booker, but he has turned it on the last couple weeks and is being who, honestly, he should be and could get even better. Christian Scott has an injury that'll keep him out, just kind of precautionary for the next few weeks. So his fall was really good, but it's done. And then Griffin Merritt's experience certainly shows out there. And he's just an older guy that knows how to work his way around the park and certainly get through an at-bat in a mature fashion too. So heavy competition, several guys will be used, and that's probably not something that'll be decided until SEC conference play rolls around, to be honest with you.
With Christian Moore and Blake Burke, everybody talks about their bat and the home runs and whatnot, but where are they at defensively? And then as a team, where do you feel like your team is defensively as well?
Yeah, I think Blake has learned a lot from Luke, just kind of being that duo over there. And now it's kind of fun to see Blake be that guy for other players. Like Hunter Ensley's played a lot of first base, as you've seen, and he's been an outfielder his whole life. Some infield, but certainly not first base. So Blake is now kind of Luke as it relates to mentoring the other players over at first base. And I think when you can do that, I know certain coaches ask their kids to work camps. When you can coach something, that means you know it, or at least provide some sort of instruction. So I think he just knows the position better. But if you look at his skill set as far as actions at first base, he's got as good actions as you could ever ask for somebody over there, and of course is a big target. And then Simo won't like me saying this, but he is night and day. I mean, I've joked about it with players in the dugout, how much better he is than he was when he first got here defensively. A lot of it is just his movements are better. You see how he looks physically in the uniform. So a lot of work these kids do in the weight room with a guy as special as Q translates into stuff that people might give credit to the coaches. Man, his swing looks better or his mechanics look better. But I think a lot of what he's doing stems from that, but also just a ton of reps. The guys up in the Cape said he was always eager to get repetitions there. So those two, I think, are well-rounded players, offensively and defensively.
Mike, Eric, and then Wes.
Yeah, obviously there's been a lot of attention on Chase Billwanger this fall. How have you seen him just handle the volume of scouts, the volume of attention, everything that goes with the attention around potentially number one pick?
It's been good. I had a conversation. Hooker's been unbelievable on the field with how he plays and what he can do with his arm and his legs, but he's got a presence to him and a composure. It's almost like, hey, now that they're ranked number one, he seems like to be the perfect guy to put that on my shoulders and I'll take care of it. And kind of that maturity is going to be needed from a guy like Chase that's going to have all this stuff written about him and all the potential opportunities. And I don't know that he's gotten to that status, but he's got a calm about him. Naturally, just his background and his family comes from such good people, but he seems to be embracing it a little bit more. I think he was a little bright-eyed last year at the beginning of the year, if I could speak for him. But when you have to pitch in Hoover, against LSU and pitch in a regional, super regional, and some of the other things that he did for us, I think you kind of start to get used to it. And I don't think nerves will ever go away, and you're certainly going to have thoughts about, what about this? Where's my future? What can happen on draft day and stuff like that. But he seems to kind of have that composure you want a leader to have, and hopefully that continues to grow just as he's kind of developed in a bunch of other areas.
Eric,
at this point in the fall, kind of what's your plan in terms of the arms heading into Sunday?
Sunday will be a day where some guys get multiple innings as opposed to when we played Wake Forest, we tried to give, we executed it too, 18 or 19 different guys we wanted to use. And this will be a smaller amount of guys. A few guys will get multiple innings, but we're also trying to decide how do we want to treat our Fall World Series on the back end, which will start the Thursday after that. So that might subtract some action from some guys as well. So Doe will start. He'll get a couple innings. A couple guys, again, precautionary, have gotten work in with us this fall, but we've kind of slowed them. So they might be removed from the equation. So a big thing is for us to put our best foot forward in front of that huge crowd and really try and win that game, to be honest with you, that leads things off. And then we'll see kind of what's left over, what needs to be done in that second game. But some of those guys need to be given another opportunity on a kind of a heightened stage that are younger arms and see what they can do.
Wes.
Tony, obviously last year for Logan Chambers didn't go the way I'm sure he wanted it to go or the way y'all wanted it to go for him. But just looking at the numbers this summer and some things that have emerged this fall, it seems like everything since then has been pretty good. What's changed for him? Is it opportunity or comfort?
Yeah, the phrase I always try and scare our players a little bit with is getting pinched out. And by that I mean, whether that's a proper phrase, they're good enough to play, but they might get squeezed out because other guys perform well and their opportunities get limited. And his whole career, I mean, high school, he went to a tremendous high school, went to one of the better junior colleges in the country. Last fall with us, this fall, summer, he's always done great. And for us, he just couldn't get it rolling last year, but I also feel, to be fair, he never had the proper sample size that was out there. And we were so athletic in the outfield. Defense was something that maybe was the cause of him getting quote-unquote pinched out. But I feel like hitting is something he's always worked at. He's always understood it. He takes pride in it, and he's always had success. And now he is a little bit more adept to playing defense really at any spot we want to put him at. So I expect him not just to contribute offensively, but defensively. And then also now he's got enough kind of stock in the company that I think he's got a leadership role with our group too.
Vince, Ryan, and then Mike.
Tony, what are some things you can tell us about Mario and how he has developed since he's been on campus?
Yeah, I think Maui, and then anyone that kind of deals with that transfer portal thing gets a little bit of culture shock, because even if they were only at a school for 1 year, and of course in his case it was 2 years, there's no right or wrong way to do things, but everybody does things their own way. So you get used to how Coach Q's workouts are. Maybe what's one or two different things we do infield-wise, which I don't even know that we have. Just throwing out different examples that could be there. And then just integrating with your teammates. And I think he and Simo, when they've been kind of the combo, which they're probably the leaders in the clubhouse up the middle, they've taken to each other nicely. He's certainly got familiar with everything else to do with the program, and he's a really likable kid. The few kids I've had a good fortune of coaching from Hawaii there's a few things you could list that are similar traits, and they're all likable. But I do think the off-season will be huge for him. He's already put on, I want to say 7 or 8 pounds, but those of you that have come to scrimmages see he's still got a frame that can easily take more weight and probably needs to, especially to withstand, a taxing season. We want to play, into June, and the kid's really gifted. He can kind of. Coach Anderson says it's a flick that he sees that most guys he's coached have never had, and Coach A's coached more big league shortstops than I have, and it's a pretty special talent on defense, but he can do a lot of other things too. And I think the more he integrates himself into the program, and again, I'm not telling you ours is better or worse than anybody, but kind of the way we do things, he'll start to become a leader too.
Ryan.
Where has White Evans improved most this offseason, and just how would you assess this fall?
It's interesting, and I'll just air it out because it's been, one of those things when you're driving or traveling. I've thought about him a lot, and he's gotten more athletic as it, pertains to defending his position, or PFP is what we call it. Maui, I'll throw him under the bus. He didn't know what PFP was, by the way. I think everybody in here probably knows that. Pitcher's fielding practice, but he's gotten a lot better at that. I don't know that we could really trust him in a key situation last year to defend his position. We can do that now. It sounds like a simple box to check, but it's not as simple as it does sound. Off speed has gotten a lot better, but what's bothered me is the fastball command that he had last year hasn't shown itself. And that's understandable. That can kind of happen when you start mixing more. It is a little bit more of a challenge to keep that strike percentage where it needs to be. But last year he was so good and reliable with that fastball. He just didn't have much to go with it. Now he seems to have a full arsenal, and he kind of showed it against Florida in the SEC tournament last year. So just finding that balance of everything that he does have in his arsenal is key. And the kid, I don't know if he's ever used a razor, it's because he's jealous of his teammates. He should be a freshman age-wise. So there's a lot of time in front of him. And his runway for his career, because he's so big and left-handed and a hard worker and he's not scared, it's long. So it'll be fun to watch him as he progresses.
So Mike and then Ben.
This time, a couple years ago, Jake Fitzgibbons was a guy we were talking about a lot and hasn't really maybe done what he could have done the past couple years, but it looks like he's put it together now. Is that the case, and what's different about maybe his confidence on the mound right now?
Yeah, and Q's earning a salary because I keep bringing his name up here, but it's an organic fashion. It's the perfect answer for your question. When he was younger, he had kind of an immature body, not physically as strong as it is now, but he had this cannon attached to his shoulder because he's always had a lot of arm speed and velocity that comes with it. But now he was running on the track the other day, so there's a good amount of distance, and we're sitting by home plate. We were like, look at how much thicker he looks out there right now compared to what he was when he was a freshman. So I think that strength and just all the things that those guys do in there has given him more body control and therefore kind of control of that big arm that he has. Because he not only, whatever the velo says it's good, it's high-level velocity, but the ball also jumps out of his hand. So I think his body control has allowed him to command that. His off-speed has gotten better. And last year he hit a little bit of a roadblock with an injury too. So just bouncing around, I'd say where we're at today is you got a kid that knows the program. He thinks his time is now. I mean, you can call it the Trey Lipscomb theory from now on at our program. You can see he thinks his time is now, and he is attacking hitters. And he's doing it with really good stuff that he now kind of has reined in as opposed to it scattering all over the place on him. So he deserves it. I mean, having to sit there last year was frustrating for him, I know. And he was kind of knocking on the door of being an added arm for us in key situations last year. And, sometimes when those guys sit there just like Joyce, not only do they get time to recover, work on weaknesses, but you learn the game a little bit, sitting there and watching, and you grow up a little bit. So I think he's got a lot of things going for him right now. His last outing was exciting, but temper that excitement, big boy, if he's hearing this. He's still a young kid, too, that's learning to, again, rein in that stuff and utilize it as best as he can.
Tony, I know Zane has had some things out of his control that have made for a roller coaster fall for him, but have you seen him kind of adjust rather well to being here and kind of get into the flow of things lately?
Yeah, I think he's adjusted well when he's been able to. A lot of kids come in the summer and start to kind of get to know each other, or they show up, Maui showed up real early even though he wasn't in summer classes. Zane, kudos to him, he went out and played ball. And this is another topic, but we're in a new era where a lot of guys don't like to go out and play summer ball. And sometimes that's the best thing for pitchers with their arms or a guy nursing an injury or something, but he likes to play. And he went out and did it, but what it meant was he didn't arrive here until kind of the final hour. So he was already behind the eight ball. He's gotten sick a couple times. I feel like almost everyone on our team has gotten a 2 or 3 day illness that's kind of run rampant through campus, I think. Definitely through our locker room, unfortunately. And then he's had some tragedies occur with losing some loved ones. And all of us as coaches want tough kids. Tough is a very, how are you a tough golfer? Brennan can tell you about it, but it's different for each sport. But at the end of the day, these kids are all tough because of social media, and they get so much stuff thrown at them. And that kid's had more thrown at him than anybody I've been around in one semester. So he's a tough kid. He loves Tennessee. He's obviously very talented. And he really wants to win. I mean, that was a big thing coming here is he wanted to, if and when he enters pro ball, he wanted to look back and say he's experienced, something like a regional, super regional, or I assume Omaha, every kid's dreaming of too. So we'll get there. He's just had to persevere through a lot.
Take one or two more, Wes.
Tony, how are things going at the catcher position this fall, and how are things looking there?
Yeah, it was a weird week. Jared Dickey took one off the hand and had a slight fracture in his hand, and then Peyton Ebbing is a freshman who had arm surgery in high school, COVID again. He had missed so much baseball, and he's from a northern state, and then he gets injured again with us. So you really feel for the kid, and you also feel for Jared. Jared teared up after that happened, and I think a lot of that was residual from last year. I know he always has a smile on his face, but he was so frustrated last year with that foot injury, keeping him out of the mix for most of our trail run or end of the season there. So those two guys have been out. Cal Stark, a newcomer, a local guy who went to junior college in Texas, has been really good for us at the plate, developing as a catcher. It's been a nice surprise to see how good he is at the plate. And I think he's a guy that's going to benefit from off-season time with Coach Q. And again, that's a position where you got Coach E's throwing all this stuff at you to get you better, and Coach Anderson has high standards for how you work with the pitchers. He's going to benefit from time in the winter. Charlie's much more comfortable, and Charlie's never going to strut around. He's too good of a kid and too humble, but he does exude more confidence when he's out there on the field and playing looser and has a much greater understanding of things, obviously, than he did as a freshman. So he looks good. And then Ryan Miller, I'll tell you what, Ryan Miller probably moves around as athletically as any kid when Q's doing speed work or we're doing base running. He's got as much power as anybody we have, and he's getting better at that position too. And he's able to, fill a DH spot on a scrimmage day or playing the outfield, third base, first base. But right now we need him behind the plate because we are missing two guys. So it's been interesting. There's good options, and it's probably another one of those things that'll come down to the wire who we want to start, 2 out of the 3 games opening day weekend.
Last question, go ahead.
Tony, obviously you have a new core this year. How important has it been to keep the coaching staff intact and bring Q back? How has that helped the process of establishing the new core and all these new guys coming in and trying to fit all those puzzle pieces together?
Yeah, you're in a new space, or at least we are, each year. Each year kind of becomes its own entity. And this group in particular, I think, I'm just kind of spouting off what I think and maybe what's been said in the locker room is just because you're in the SEC or just because you have a power T on your chest, it doesn't mean you're a superstar. Last year's team accomplished those things that people are celebrating. We're getting new lockers. I know everyone wants to know about construction. That'll come here real soon, but the administration's doing a lot of stuff for us this winter. And some of these guys need to realize that they're the benefactors, but they're not the ones that caused it. So culture is a huge piece for every program, but this year in particular for us, it's very unique. And to have Coach Q back, I think, is almost mandatory. I don't know what we would have done without him. But you're starting to see some guys emerge as leaders. It's going to take time. You don't just start leading. You have to work to do things that gain the respect that leaders get. And then your motives will be followed and your habits will be copied and your instruction will be listened to a little bit better. So it's been a process, but it's going to be a key part of our story, excuse me, as we move forward. There's no question.
Thank you, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.